Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bertie Live, where I have the honor of speaking to Bertie about everything that has to do with coaching, life, transformation, etc. Bertie and myself spent the day together, and we were working on an exciting project. Bertie, thank you so much for being with me on the live show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. All's well and it ends well. So a day was spent with valuable time and valuable insights from your side, and hope to share that with everybody out there very soon.
Cool. So I shared with you what I wanted to talk about today, and it's in the title. But do you want to talk a little bit about what you were working on today?
I'll allow myself to be guided by you. I think I did go on social media to tell them that I am finalizing my book, and so that was the time that we were spending on the content, finalizing the content of that, so they can get ready to send to the publishers. And yes, it's exciting times. I believe from everybody out there that your first book is always a great challenge, but also something to be grateful for. And I'm looking forward to getting the hard copy in my hand, and having and sharing it with everybody out there in a product launch.
So before we go into our topic today, why is this topic of vision with imagination so important to you?
You know me, I'm extremely passionate about people being focused and having purpose in life. The fact that the combination of the two in an equation, passion plus purpose, is equal to prosperity, is just one thing that is vitally important. But the whole thing of having purpose, having a reason to get up in the morning and challenge the day and take it on head on, is so crucially important, because if we don't have that direction, if we don't have a road to travel, it is said any road will take us there. We will then be like a lost ship on the ocean. All the currents and all the winds will just play around with it, and it will get absolutely nowhere. And that is where people within that state of mind take their own lives, because they get to a point of absolutely no return. And I've seen it, I've heard it, I've experienced it. People that take their own lives, my own friends' children. We are not born in this world to take our own lives. We are born in this life to have a purpose, to do something, to leave a legacy at the end of the day, not to end our lives prematurely.
Patty, it was your birthday on Saturday, and you shared with me today a little bit about your reflection backward and what you're looking forward to. You have this video that you created let's say, about a year ago, which says, "Don't rewire, refire." And I think that's where your mindset is. Tell us a little bit, having had your birthday, what was your reflection like in the past, and what are you looking forward to in the future?
In a nutshell, because I can keep you busy for a long time, I've done a lot of things in my life, and only in the latter part of my life did I realize why I was such an almost jittery soul, moving from one thing to the next. Being successful all along, and it's not that I'm unsuccessful. I just needed more challenges. I was, I get bored so quickly and so easily, and that's why I spent a lot of time in different organizations, in different positions, and in my own life, in my interests, different sports. Visited different countries, worked in different countries on different continents in the world. All of that in my short life. But getting to this point where I'm at now, and I'd like to rephrase your terminology and talk about, don't retire, rewire. Because there is no ways that I can see myself sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee in my hand, and enjoy the bird life in my garden. There is no ways I can do that. So I needed more challenges, and that is where at that is I've cottoned on, and the whole concept of vision with imagination is so important to me, because I want people to understand that when we look at something, that there's a lot of emotions and feelings that go through. It is all about, what do I see when I look at this vision? If I look at Table Mountain, for example, from across Blueberg, and I just look at it, the question is, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? What do I think? All of those things are crucially important, that I'm able to do that and able to understand that the person next to me will think about different things. They'll feel different. They hear different. And that is crucially important. That's the way we put it together. And I have still got a lot of oomph and life in me. And I'm not going to sit back. So writing a book, and just living my life out there, and I can share with everybody out there. It's so interesting that getting the book published is very close, but just putting the word out there, everybody knows that I'm passionate about a vision with imagination. But worldwide, I got approaches and interest, invitations to appear on shows and radio stations. It's incredible how doors open where you had no imagination that's possible. But that's part of a vision with imagination. You create a vision for yourself with imagination. You've got no idea what the end state is going to look like. But it happens. And it comes to you because you're focused and you're passionate about where you're heading. So thanks for asking.
Besides the obvious benefits to you for publishing a book, which is, we've spoken about this before, it's essentially like a business card, a very good one, opening doors for you, etc. What is your expectation for this book to achieve in terms of the reader? Like, what are they, why should they be excited about this book?
All my thoughts would be covered in that book, and it will give you an answer to how to live that deserved life. I don't want to be unfair to any person or any group or whatever, but part of my frustrations in my learning so far from University of Life and readings, books, webinars, and conferences and congresses and whatever, you always hear about the what and often about the why. So the why and the what is always part of that learning experience, but it normally and mostly exclude the how. So I have created a book that will give you the answers to the how question. In other words, if I tell you what to do, what you should do to live a passionate life with purpose and living your dreams, I will also in that book give you the answers as to how to do it. What should you do? Where do you start? What should your thinking be, and why that thinking? And who to turn to help, and etc. So it will be a book that can almost replace my course. So if you don't want to attend my course and spend some time with me live one-on-one, you just buy the book, and it will be available in an ebook, so that you can go through it and get your own answers and create your own vision and start living that, so that you can get that life that you deserve, so that you also get to a point where you say, listen, I'm never going to retire. I'll just rewire myself in a different format, but tomorrow I'm coming out of my bedroom a different person with a different focus.
Awesome.
That's what I want to leave.
Let's get into our topic. I want to bring you a challenge, and this relationship that we have is about me stretching you and challenging you. And I know for those that are watching, I have Bertie's permission. So let's talk about teams, right? Or a staff contingency or employees or whatever. If you want to be successful, it's very important for all your staff members or your team members to be on the same page and rowing in the same direction. And if one division has this goal and they're going this way, and another division has that goal and they're going that way, or they do the same thing but they do it at different times, there's a huge disconnect for me. So why does that happen? Because in one of the teams that I'm with, working with, we have I would say they're about 40% capacity, because what we need to do, some are doing it right now, others are going to do it in 2-3 months, which might be too late. So how do you get your teams in unity, to work together at the same time on the same thing?
It's quite a challenge to put that in and give it back in short time and in a few words. What came to mind immediately is, if I must put one word to it, it is trust. But then when my mind goes and say, listen, I want to share with you, it's all about trust. Then I added to that immediately. It came to mind and said, listen, now I must add to that courage. And then if I talk about trust and courage, I must add to that relationships. Because if you want to form a team, we must be able to trust each other for what is our worth. What are we bringing to the team? What is our role in that team? And we must trust each individual in that role to bring their A1 game to the party. And then I must have that courage. And it's not just the courage of the manager or the leader. It's each and a single member to have the courage of their conviction to trust their colleague will always deliver the best piece of work at the right time. And then, as I say, lastly, the term relationships is that we care about each other, that I've got your back. If you're not at the sharpest today, that I can stand in for you and not ask questions. I just do it because we care for one another. Tomorrow, if I'm not at my best, you will stand in for me and have my back. So, and that is the foundation of a good team. Trust, courage, and relationships.
Bertie, I wanna unpack that a little bit. Now, I hear what you're saying in terms of courage, where courage is on the employee's side, that's saying, I believe that I can do anything. I believe that I can execute that which is expected of me. I believe with the tools that I've gotten or the tools that I have, that I can do what I need to do. We'll come to relationships in a second, but do you have any ideas on, besides relationship building, spending time with someone? Because in this case, that's something that's been done often, lots of time spent. How can you increase the trust by the team in you as a manager or a team leader, so that they say, you know what, Ivin has given us this idea, this plan, and I trust him, so let me just follow his follow the plan, or follow his instructions, or just let me follow the directive as it is written there, and trust him that it's going to do what it's going to do, and I'm not being set up to fail. How do you build that trust?
Okay.
Is it just time? Is it just...
No, it's not necessary time. It's not necessary time. It's important to understand your individual role. And in other words, role clarity with yourself and the understanding of each and every one in that team. Let's use a sport team, for example. A game like rugby is close to my heart. Let's just take the game of rugby. Forget about the fact that if I do a brain profile as we would do and normally would recommend in a team environment, and we can get back to that, because even in a brain profiling, you will get an answer as to why certain players are playing prop or lock or fly off or fullback, because different people, in terms of how they see it and how they put together in terms of whole brain thinking, plays a different role on that field. But sometimes, and quite often, it is up to the coach to choose a team according to his strengths, and secondly, according to his competition, in terms of what is their strengths and how you want to counter certain let's call it good players on the other team side. So he may decide to choose people out of their position, their normal position. Maybe they're normally an eighth man or a flanker. Then he plays them on lock, on a position as a lock, so that he has more speed to the breakdown point. It's up to him. Sometimes he may play the fly off, the normal fly off, on outside center or fullback, just because of that. But when the players run on that field, each and every one of the 15 understand his role and his position. I cannot, if I prefer to play eighth man, and the scrum goes down, and I say, listen, I'm not scrumming. I hate lock. I want to play eighth man, and you go and you have a strike because you want the eighth man. You chosen on the basis of your ability by the management, your coach, in a position and therefore in a role for that specific match. There might be a backup in terms of reserves coming up and somebody get injured, where they then push you back in your old place because the replacement guy may be a better fullback and not at all a fly half, so you move into fly half because of that situation. But then there's 10, 15, 20 minutes left of the game. So to get back to your question, therefore, is that role clarity is just as important for that specific project. And everybody must understand. I know Peter, I know Mary, I know John, I know Paul, that this is your strength. That is where I've normally applied you. But for this project, I want you to fulfill this role. Take up this responsibility, please. That is your role. So we get clarity on that, and each person in that team then understand their role. And at the end of the day, we have that clarity and we can move forward. So we don't have the confusion and the uncertainty of why I'm here and what is expected of me. I've got role clarity and everybody understand that.
Okay, so let's say everyone they know exactly what their role is. Is that enough? Goals have been set. We know why we're doing things. Is there anything else that's missing?
I think what is missing, that's why we do the NBI profiling, whole brain profiling, so often, is that help people to understand why somebody else does what they do the way they do it. In other words, so that I can understand why I do what I do the way I do it, because that's the way I prefer. That is my thinking preference, and that is what I love doing and the way I love doing things. And if you have an effective whole brain thinking team, that role clarity comes through as well. So if we sit there and Paul come up with a suggestion that the rest of us understand that is Paul's strength. If he comes with a suggestion, we can believe him that he will come with the best solution, and we can trust him and have the courage to trust him because we understand his role and his thinking preference. In other words, what is his strength? And each person then in the team, we understand what is their strengths. So when they come with that to the party and come with that suggestion to the table, It's not that everybody argues because I have to get my voice heard and I have an opinion and everybody must listen to my opinion. Effective teams work as a team together, trusting every other person's strengths, and that's efficiency. And some people might run in a team and run the 100 meters in 10 seconds, and the other one take 20 seconds. But we understand that is their role also in a team.
So if we have a scenario where, you know, this is what we usually do, but now we have to do something a little bit extra, far over and above, not even so much, just something different than we used to. It's an unusual plan. It's outside of the norm. And I guess here that the trust factor that you spoke about comes in again. Is it possible for everyone to just say, you know what, this is my strengths, that's your strengths, this is my role, that's your role, but today we're going to do something different, completely outside of our normal roles, and we're going to run with this plan. And then can you get the whole group on board, or are you always going to have the Pareto principle playing into that?
Yeah, it's this is where the relationship comes in, because we understand that we've got a project. We kick this project off with a lot of anticipation and expectations, and a role clarity and all those kind of things. And there was defined key dates that certain things need to be done in a certain format, and what we got clarity on that. But things will go wrong. That's guaranteed. The question now is, when we go a little bit out of sync in terms of our project plan, what do we do? That's when that relationship come into play, that people then say, listen, I know my role is to I'm the accountant in the project, and I'm look after the budget and the cost. But for now, I'm going to roll up my sleeves, and I'm going to grab the spade and the wheelbarrow, and I'm going to pull my weight, because that's where we need help now and attention now, not in doing the books or doing the budget, and that is when we care. Like I say, I've got your back. But too often in a team, some will sit back and say, I didn't cause this problem. It wasn't my problem. I'll wait till this project is back on track, and then I will join the team again. It's like Oxwagon. I mean, the Oxwagon has got its oxen in front of them, and contrary to what we need to believe, is the person that is wielding the whip is directing the oxen, and not necessarily beating the oxen into motion. And there's always in that team, in front of the ox wagon, there's a leader. One of the oxen's a leader. They take the pace. And an effective team lead will always be part of the project, and not be in a managerial overviewing position, looking from outside there and not being involved. That too means the leader gets involved. He too rolls up his sleeves and get involved. And that's an effective team that consists of every single member. And there's not one more important than the other. Not one role is more important than the other. Because if I didn't need that role, the person would not be part of the team. We need that input. We need that responsibility. And we need that expertise to make this project work. So nobody can go step out and just say, it's not me. That's not efficiency. That's when you replace the person. Even on a sports field, if that player is just not on today, and his kicking is just terrible, I replace him. Because today he might not be at peak. I know he's brilliant, but for today, for now, he's not a contributor to this team. I have to replace him. Sometimes the leader has to make a decision, because if that's the situation, it'll hold the whole team back.
Okay. This case about not my problem. Sometimes you are given a project of oversight, for instance. You didn't cause it, but you are asked to manage it and improve it, if you will. How do you motivate someone in that case?
Understanding the principle of you've got to earn the right to lead. So if management place the wrong leader and allocate them to a team, then that manager or CEO of the company, or whoever may be the case, must take the responsibility if that team fails, because they made the wrong decision in terms of putting the wrong person in that team. They must also understand, what kind of leader do I need for this specific project? An innovator, a creator, or a maintenance guy that can just get the ball rolling and get the job done? Or is there more input required? Or are you putting an authoritarian in there that's going to beat the living daylights out of the people to get to their deadlines? And at the end of the day, nobody enjoys what they're doing. And if they don't enjoy it, meaning they don't love what they're doing, they will not be effective. And out goes the efficiency, and out goes the profit of the project. So that's also key. Who puts who in the position, inclusive of the leadership.
Just quickly, you mentioned relationships a couple of times. How do you improve and deepen a relationship with your team? Is it always going to be a team building environment exercise? How else can you build relationships with your team? Two things that probably stand out for me is spending time. For instance, going out, team building, showing appropriate care. What are some of the other ways that you can build and deepen relationships with team members?
I'm going to use the example of the rugby team. Often the coach will choose a specific scrum half with a specific fly half because they know each other, or a hooker with specific locks. There's often combinations of an outside center and a wing and those kind of things. There's often groups and members in a team that inadvertently set the pace and define the playing field in terms of when it comes to relationships. Because you need somebody to take that kind of lead. If I put 10 complete strangers together on a project, it's going to be a challenge to build relationship. And if it's a long term project, it will be good to do some exercises where they can get to experience each other, not on the job, but off the job. And that's where sometimes the guys go out in the bush and in a project and they have fun, but there's leadership, challenges out there and different challenges so that people can see who's naturally coming through in certain situations and who's got your back and who will be there if certain things happen. So you can build a relationship. But fortunately and hopefully in an organization, you when you put a team together, you would most of the time put a group of team members together that know one another. So that's where the trust and comes in, that they trust each other, and because they've got previous experience in terms of relationships that they built, that they can trust one another, and each other will have their back. But yeah, getting a team from different strangers together is always a challenge, and then you need to start somewhere, and sometimes it's good to do the brain profiling and share the brain profiling so that each person can understand the strengths of the other person. The right brain person that speaks and thinks and acts almost in pictures and in emotions, and the facts and figures left brain guys, and we can understand why we differ. And then the team will be formed very quickly. But that need to be done. That is crucial in any team to be effective. And the longer the project, the more important is to set the groundwork and get it right from the start.
When it comes to building a team and recruitment, there are two different ways that I think that you do it. I'm more prone to doing a call out there, seeing who's available and who wants to serve in that position and be part of that specific team, and then equipping them to do it. I think attitude, willingness, those things are more important. Can you speak to that versus headhunting someone who might join the team reluctantly, but they are the best person for the job, perhaps, but they're not necessarily willing or have the right attitude at that point, at that moment?
If I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro, and I get a group of friends together, I can bet you my last dollar on it. I am not going to appoint any one of them to be the leader of this team to go up Kilimanjaro. I am going to buy in a specialist that's going to take us there, and each of these team members will understand that role, because that role is the difference between life and death. So it's crucial we understand that the constitution and of a team also hinges on the importance of that and the risks that's associated with that team and that project. In organizations, it hardly ever happens that if you say, I want to put a team of 10 together, that 20 hands go up. There may be a couple of hands that go up. You'll have to put the team together. So if it was a perfect world and you put a team together and you get 20 hands and you can select, the 15 players and put them on the field, each on their own unique position, and have some backup in terms of reserves, fantastic. But that is not the real world situation. Sometimes you can have internal conflict where you have a few team members that is very similar in terms of strength and their weaknesses, their ability to follow and ability to lead, that you sometimes need to make a decision. But that's also important, that when you do select your leader, that the rest is willing to follow that leader, and that there's not an internal conflict in the sense that said, I should have been the leader, so I'm going to make certain Johnny's going to fail. That's not an efficient team. So it is very important that putting that team together, once again, from an organization point of view. If that answers your question.
Yeah, sometimes when you put a group together, you have the strong guys who are charging, they're chasing targets, and then you have the guys who, they are good, but they're not as dynamic as maybe the 20 or 30% of the guys that are, that's strong and charging and those kind of things. Do you think you should rather just have a team of those people, or should you try and exchange or change them with someone else, someone new?
Remember, I said that the ultimate is to have a whole brain thinking team, an effective team where every single individual brings something else to the team. It's no use we just have brawn and we have no brain. And it's no help we just have brain and we don't have brawn. We need a combination of that. So sometimes somebody will have to pick up the weight and run with it, which is not open and the others able to do. So we need that brawn sometimes, but we must understand that role. So I'm not going to fight with that individual to carry more than his weight. If he's willing and capable, and for that matter, able, I'll allow him to do that, because maybe that's the way he wants to express his passionate feel about this team, this whole togetherness, the whole understanding of that we are a team and our dynamics. So yeah, I hear you what you're saying, and sometimes it happens, but at the end of the day, we need this combination of people to do the work, to get the paperwork done, to get the project finished. We need all kind of people.
Okay. Perfect. I think, is there anything else that I didn't cover that you want to maybe mention and you want to shed light on?
No, I get into situations quite often in terms of what we just discussed. And it's quite a challenge. As an individual, they always say that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And
Wow.
that's it. That's very important that we understand that concept. And I always say to people, listen, if you want to give me an instruction and you give me a challenge, you said I must be at Cape Town in front of the castle at 12 o'clock on Saturday. That's the instruction that you got to give me. Please don't tell me when to start, which road to take, at what speed to do it, which car to take, etc. You've given me a challenge and you said to me where I must be at that time, and I will do that. If we're a team, that becomes even more important that we understand that concept. Because I cannot have it's like running the relay, the 100-meter relay. People are placed in a position on that athletic track 1, 2, 3, 4, so that the team that run on 1 will pass their baton to the next receiver in lane number 1. And so we follow till we give it to the last person that finishes the race. If we just give the baton to number 1 and say to our first runners and say, run guys, and then they run any lane they wish, hand over that baton will be chaotic. And the first hand over, the second hand over, and if anybody finishes in time, it would be quite an interesting one. And the same happens with projects. We must understand that we have a role to play in because sometimes somebody's output is somebody else's input, and it needs to be done in a certain way. And that is where the whole relationship comes in, that people can ask the others. As the receiver of the baton, I must know that my teammate is running in lane number 2, and I must stand in lane number 2 to receive the baton in lane number 2. So if I've got a project where the first person has to do certain work, which is an output that goes to me, my input, I must make certain that I talk to him or her and share why I would prefer to get that work that they are handing over in a certain format, if they can do it in that way. Because sometimes there's 10 different ways to do it, and they can choose any which one. And then it comes to me in a way that makes it extremely difficult for me, being in lane number 3 and they are running in lane number 1. And that's just communication. And that is just, once again, it's communication, effective communication, and back to relationships. Because I care that the final project need to look a certain way and must be done in a certain way. And each of us in that relay has got a role to play. And all I have to do is say, guys, remember, we're running lane number 1. And I say to the next guy, remember, we run lane number 1. And if I can prefer, please, I will run with the baton in my left hand. So please, you receive it in your right hand. And it's just a matter of communication. And that makes the simple things in teams, when we work together and each one is responsible for a specific output that leads to the end project, we need to share that. But the moment we live our life in an isolation and saying, I'm an expert, I will give it to you at the time that you want it. Don't tell me how to do it. Then we're not a team, and we will never be effective. So that is crucially important that we understand when we select these people. Are we selecting 5 individuals, or are we selecting 5 people that care about one another and is willing to be part of the team and will take a persona in that team for that project? Crucially important.
I love the story where you told about staying in your lane and the relay race. But then you said, if I'm running and I have the baton in my left hand, you should reach out and grab for it with your right hand. I guess you could take it with your left hand, but there's not going to be. So this speaks to your team's rhythm. Now that rhythm is, especially when you have a dance partner, it's also the rhythm and how you move together makes that a spectacular performance. Is that solved just by effective communication, or do you need to do a couple practice runs? Do you need to do it together, fail together, that kind of thing? Is that necessary, or can you get it right kind of the first time?
Effective communication is excellent. And if we have the necessary trust, then it can work. But there is never anything wrong with a dry run, with some practice. Because remember the idea of the next runner to have his right hand out so that I can put the baton, which is in my left hand, in his hand, is that there comes a time in that race and at a certain point where that person turn around and start running at full pace, trusting that I will put the baton in his hand before the line, otherwise we're getting disqualified. So and often that need to be practiced, that we can just be at our sharpest. And there's nothing wrong with practicing, because the more I practice, as Gary Player always said, the luckier I get. And business is not about luck, but doing the right things, the right time and the right place, sometimes requires a bit of luck to get it right the first time.
I'm a big proponent of momentum, and I have this saying, patience is the power that makes momentum reach critical mass, and when critical mass is reached, you can't stop that movement. Speaking about momentum, again, coming back to your team, some people are on board, some's not on board or not on board yet. So you have a team running ahead, and so the other guys are just they're not even running; they're just like almost walking. There's a complete disconnect. So before you reach momentum, do you wait for the rest of your team to catch up? I assume that's going to be important. Or, because if you have one part of the team running ahead and they're like, whoa, and the other team is like, they're behind, eventually they get up and they get to some kind of pace, but you haven't reached the finish line together.
What you're saying is reaching the finishing line together is important. But if I run the race and the relay, it's the last runner that's going to take us to the line, and whether we are finishing in first place, second, or third place. So that is the important thing. The first runner, the second, the third runner doesn't run with the final runner. They don't. I've done my job. So it's often my job is as a part of this project that take us closer to our end state, to our goal. But I am not party to the last input, for example. Certainly, if the person that has to receive the baton must be in place at the right time to receive the baton, and can't just, wanted to phone his girlfriend quickly while he's waiting for the other three to finish their job. No, you must be prepared and ready. So sometimes there's lagging, but of the right person and the right people. But if the person who's next in line to bring his weight to the end state is not supporting the team, then that team member need to be replaced as soon as possible, because then the selection of that individual was wrong. And if you needed a specialist to do a certain job, then you bring the specialist in and you take him out of the team. So you bring him in the right time to do that specialist job, and he's out of the team, because some people can be toxic. And unfortunately, we do have those kind of things, but we don't need them as a full-time member of this team right to the finishing line, because then they're going to create negativity and be toxic to the whole team. That's crucial, and that's part of planning. That's part of the leadership role, that sometimes we need that individual. And everybody hate that individual, but everybody understand and appreciate the expertise that come with that individual. So we allow the individual to come in, and we all hold our breath till it's gone, and then we breathe again, and we're back to normal again. So if the person doesn't pull his weight, you replace him, or you understand that role, and you bring him in and out. And if not, sometimes that individual has got something that troubles them, and then that relationship become important. We carry him with us until he or she feels better and pulling their weight, because we know and understand that normally they are at peak performance. Just something for now went wrong. So we were there for them. And the moment we start caring for one another, that rubs off. And the team cohesion, the efficiency out of that is just explosive.
Amazing, thank you, Bertie. I've spent a lot of time with you, and I think today's video is probably my favorite, if I can say the top one. For those that's in the viewers, I don't know about you, but I've enjoyed today, and I think you've seen Bertie at his best, where he's been given different scenarios and he's been offering solutions, coaching scenarios, word pictures, sports metaphors, etc., for almost everything that I was thinking about in a team dynamic, and where everybody had to reach a certain goal and work together in unity. Bertie, that was amazing. It was an absolute privilege. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ivan. You must get the credit. I thank you for that, because you get the best out of me. I appreciate that. And I too really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you're watching all this way to here, thank you so much for doing that. Would you go post any questions that you may have in the comments below? We'd also appreciate if you could share this on your platform, or tag someone in the comments that you could think that could benefit from this. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you again next week at 4 o'clock on Tuesday.